In 2005, the console war was about brute force. Sony and Microsoft were building supercomputers for your living room. Nintendo's new president looked at that roadmap and made a decision that horrified the industry. This is the story of the Wii, a machine Nintendo knew was technically inferior, a machine built for mothers, not gamers, a machine that would outsell the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 by tens of millions. The story begins in 2001 with a quiet partnership. Nintendo collaborated with a small company called Gyration, which held patents on motion sensing technology. This collaboration would plant the seed for a completely different kind of controller. Then, in May 2002, a seismic shift occurred at Nintendo. Satoru Iwata, a programmer by trade, became president. He wasn't the legendary designer Miyamoto or the titan Yamauchi. He was a systems thinker who saw the company from the inside out. Iwata's first major project was the Nintendo DS, a handheld with two screens, one of which was a touchscreen. It was a gamble on accessibility and new inputs. It sold over 154 million units, proving that innovation didn't have to mean more polygons. With the DS's success, Iwata gathered his hardware chief Genyo Takeda and legendary designer Shigeru Miyamoto. His directive was radical: go off the tech roadmap. The goal wasn't to compete with Sony and Microsoft. The goal was to make a console for people who don't play video games. This wasn't a vague idea. They had a specific user in mind, the mother of a household. A person they assumed found traditional controllers intimidating and video games irrelevant. Every design decision would be filtered through that lens. The controller had to be simple. The team even prototyped a DS-like touch panel for the console, but abandoned it to avoid redundancy with their successful handheld. The motion sensing idea from the Gyration partnership became the core. The Wii Remote was born. By E3 2005, the console was codenamed Revolution. But Iwata didn't show a powerful new machine. He held a tiny, white prototype above his head with one hand. The message was clear. This isn't about size or power, it's about what's different. That difference was reinforced by the console's design. It was small, minimalist, white. Not a black monolith meant to intimidate, but an object meant to blend into a living room. It was compared to an Apple iPod, a lifestyle accessory, not a toy. The final price point was another deliberate weapon. While Microsoft and Sony would sell their consoles for $400 and $600, Nintendo aimed for $250, half the price of a PS3. This wasn't an accident. It was the result of a fundamentally cheaper, less powerful design. Then came the name. Revolution was scragged for Wii. The stylized spelling was meant to represent two people standing together. The internet erupted in mockery. Analysts feared it would make Nintendo seem childish. Reggie Fils-Aimé, head of Nintendo of America, had to defend it. The choice wasn't whimsical, it was strategic. Wii was short, distinctive, and, crucially, pronounceable in any language. Revolution was just another tech word. On November 19, 2006, the Wii launched. Nintendo expected to ship 4 million units by year's end. Demand was so explosive that supply shortages began almost immediately. The weakest console was the hardest to find. The killer app wasn't a complex epic. It was Wii Sports, a simple collection of tennis, bowling, and boxing games bundled with the console. It transformed living rooms. Grandparents were bowling, families were competing. Gaming's audience had just expanded exponentially. By 2007, the results were undeniable. Within a single year of launch, the Wii had outsold both the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. It became the best-selling console of its entire generation, a generation defined by a horsepower race it chose not to run. The impact sent shockwaves through the industry. If you can't beat them, copy them. Sony rushed to develop the PlayStation Move. Microsoft invested billions in the Kinect. The two giants were now playing catch-up in a market Nintendo had invented. But here's the critical second-order effect. In chasing the casual market, did Nintendo also change who it was? Miyamoto himself would later admit the Wii was regarded in a separate class from the high-definition PS3 and Xbox 360. It had won the war, but maybe lost its identity. By 2008, the seeds of the next crisis were already being planted. Within Nintendo's own walls, they began discussing the Wii U. The goal? To recapture the hardcore gamers who saw the Wii as a toy. This very success had created a perception problem. The final tally was staggering. The Wii sold over 101 million units, becoming Nintendo's best-selling home console. But the Wii U, its direct successor and attempt to course-correct, would sell just 13.56 million, a catastrophic failure. The Wii's success was so total, so disruptive, that it paradoxically trapped its successor. The market Nintendo had created, casual, motion-controlled, low power, was the very market it now had to fight to escape. The revolution had been too successful. Nintendo discontinued the Wii in October 2013. Its story is a masterclass in disruptive innovation, identifying a non-consumer and building for them. But it also carries a profound warning about the dangers of defining yourself solely in opposition to your rivals. The lesson isn't just target non-users. The lesson is about the trap of success. When you win by breaking the rules of a game, you risk building a new game that is too small for your long-term ambitions. You become defined by what you rejected. Iwata's bet was brilliant, but it was a bet on a specific moment and a specific audience. The genius was in the insight. The peril was in the assumption that this audience and this moment would be permanent. They never are. Ultimately, Nintendo's own Switch would finally surpass the Wii's sales in 2021 by being both a home console and a handheld, by serving core gamers and casuals alike. It was the synthesis of the lesson the Wii taught and the lesson the Wii's failure made necessary. So the next time you see a company being mocked for being weak or underpowered or different, remember the Wii. True disruption often looks like a joke. The question is whether you can turn that joke into a sustainable empire before the world moves on.